skylla lappre, kese fjær, skylla leppjær, eller de her stelle janna, kynne for ikke, skylla fire, fire, Antipasto galiciana alla vieccia, kinda bajordia, gilla porra filaideri. La fina la tre la vida.
Quiet, not so much noise. That's what I heard at the age of 10, and I've been too quiet ever since then. Unhappy children of the world, unite and turn the tables. I won't quote what Aesop wrote, but here is some wisdom from Irwin's fables. There once was a tiger, tiny little tiger, playing with his tiger toys. But his nursemaid made him so afraid he didn't dare make a noise. What happened to the tiger, tiny little tiger, who never learned to roar? He's just a mat stretched out flat on somebody's bedroom floor. What I'm saying is, hey, Jimmy, Joe, John, Jim, Jack, even little tigers lose their knack when somebody twice their size can't see the world through children's eyes. There once was a beagle, happy little beagle, following his tail around. But his mother said, go straight to bed and don't make a single sound. What happened to the beagle, happy little beagle, who never learned to bay? Some burglars came, and to his shame he turned tail and ran away. What I'm saying is, hey, Jimmy, Joe, John, Jim, Jack, even little beagles lose their knack when somebody twice their size can't see the world through children's eyes. But if grown-ups would take part in things that children have their heart in, we'd never end up hiding in the dark. And what I'm saying is, hey, Jimmy, Jack, John, Jim, Joe, when you have your own kids, let them know, though you may be twice their size, you see the world through children's eyes. You see the world through children's eyes.
so you could hardly see, for the moon refused to shine. Couple sitting underneath a willow tree, for love they pine.
Little maid was kind of afraid of darkness, so she said, I guess I'll go.
Boy began to sigh, looked up at the sky, told the moon his little tale of woe. Oh, shine on, harvest moon, up in the sky. I ain't had no lovin' since January, February, June, or July. Snowtime, ain't no time to stay outdoors and spoon. So shine on, harvest moon, for me and my gal.
Yes, thank you so much.
That was unbelievable. Oh my goodness. I just have like the biggest smile on my face. Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you guys. Thank you guys for watching. It feels amazing to do it. So thank you guys. You guys just saw, so that was Clarissa, our lovely chicken from our Crowbat show. And then the frog too is from that show, and he's 55 years old. But never felt so young as he does today performing for you guys. And then Hey Jimmy, Hey Joe, he goes back. He predates the theater. He was in a show, it's called Get Happy from 1961, I think. Yeah.
Wow.
So you said that puppet's 50 years old?
Actually more than that. I think it's from 1955. So it's, whatever that is, 65 years old.
Oh my goodness. Well, he tap dances beautifully for his age.
He does. I'll tell him that backstage. I'm sure he'll blush.
Yeah. Thanks for the wonderful performance. And so your name is Alex?
Yeah, my name's Alex. I'm the executive director and head puppeteer down here at the theater. I think Missy, if you wanted to come out too, the lovely Missy, our operations director.
Hello.
Yeah, so Alex Evans and Missy Steele, like you said, he's the executive director and I'm the director of operations. So between the two of us, we kind of run the whole show.
Well, the puppets are really in charge.
Yeah, that's true. The puppets are in charge.
That's so awesome. Well, welcome to Webchat Wednesdays. I already introduced myself. My name's Chris, and I'm here with Christy.
Hello.
And we're from a makerspace called The Studio at the Long Beach Public Library. And we're so happy to have you here today. Thanks for sharing your time. I know Alex has a heart out, so let's just jump right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about the Bob Baker Marionette Theater?
Absolutely. So Alex actually joined in about 13 years ago to the theater.
Yeah.
But the theater has been around since 1963, and Bob Baker actually was doing puppets on the road before he found a physical location to start producing full shows. So he used to take his shows out to Laguna Arts Festival, to all of these great giant county fairs and things like that, to set up and do these performances well, he kind of worked his way up to being able to get a permanent location where he could store his very vast collection of puppets and bring together a lot of performers.
Yeah, we have over 2,000 puppets. We probably have a staff of about 12 different puppeteers, and then many other things, and stage managers to people that help with the archive and development and all that jazz. But yeah, it's a lot of puppets.
It's a lot of puppets
that we don't know where to put them, so we're constantly shuffling them around.
Can you tell us a little bit about Bob Baker?
Yeah. So Bob Baker, born and raised Los Angeles, and he essentially in I think 1930 saw his very first puppet show at Robinson's, the department store downtown.
He was only 6 years old at that point.
Yeah. And then so saw a puppet show and then was like, this is it. I'm going to spend the rest of my life doing this. And he did. So he kind of, like, I think when he was like a preteen, he was performing for like Liza Minnelli's birthday party and like all over LA. And then he made, during the war, there's like this camouflage division. So he his job as a soldier during World War II was camouflaging, I think it's Downey. He kind of covered all of Downey with like camouflage. But then he joined George Powell at the Puppetoons, which if you guys, Puppetoons is a very famous like stop motion, like animation kind of back in the 40s, a long time ago. And George Powell did War of the Worlds and all these kind of sci-fi kooky movies. And Bob kind of was the lead animator with George Powell. And then, so as well as kind of doing the puppet shows around town, he did a whole bunch of puppets for Disneyland.
He also had his own commercial line that I believe was sold in America and Germany.
Yeah, all over the world. So we have these Bobos, Cocos, and Totos, so essentially like toys you could buy at these fancy department stores. Actually, this year we started remaking again, so you can get your very own Bobo.
Handcrafted marionettes.
That's so awesome.
So commercial lines, Disney, like G.I. Blues, the Elvis movie with Escape to Witch Mountain, the Disney movie.
Yeah. He had a pretty fruitful film career while simultaneously running his own puppet theater in downtown LA.
Yeah. I mean, truly a legend of all sorts. And he passed away about 2014, and pretty much at that moment, all the puppeteers were like, "This is too amazing."
Yeah.
And everyone kind of banded together, like, "Okay, let's keep it going." We had to move locations for a very long story. But we landed in Highland Park, the grand opening.
And we turned into a nonprofit organization to keep it going.
Yeah. We did our grand opening about 3 months before a pandemic. Didn't plan that. but that's the long and the short of it, really.
Yeah. It's just a lot of dedicated people.
Yeah, that's so awesome. I can only imagine what it feels like to work in such like a historic place. What do you two do at the Bob Baker Marionette Theater, and how did you two get your start there?
So we have similar start situations where we both kind of wandered in one day because we had found it just by doing a Google of like puppets in Los Angeles. So when Alex started, he was in school and he was looking for like animatronic work, right?
Yeah, like special effects and like things like that with just, so not much background at all in like marionettes and puppetry, but just randomly like, oh, this place seems similar to what I'm interested in. And so our show was like, I'm in. And then 13 years later, I'm still in.
Yeah. And then when I started, I had just moved to LA. This is about 4.5 or so years ago. And I was just looking for like, obscure things in LA. Like I didn't want the tourist stuff. I wanted something like off the beaten path. I'm kind of one of those people that's more into like carnivals and Disneyland than like going out like adult humans do. So I found a puppet theater and I was like, wow, that's pretty neat. Like, is that real? And I signed up for a volunteer list and didn't hear a single peep for about 6 months. And then I got an email one day that was like, do you know how to paint? Come in and paint. And I was like, okay, I can come in and paint. And then I never left.
That's awesome and inspiring. I feel like I love those stories when people just like interact with the world and, send a message out and they just follow, like it ends up unraveling into like a bigger path and journey.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it worked out well.
Yeah, and that's pretty true for like pretty much everyone.
Most of the people here, yeah.
Yeah, there's a few staff members who kind of saw shows when they were like a little kid and then kind of grew up and then like had this strange memory in the back of their head that brought them back and now they're hooked again. But yeah, pretty like most of us, like, I mean, puppetry, as you can imagine, it's not like a a huge career where like people don't like graduate college. I'm gonna sign up to be a puppeteer. Yeah.
It's like joining the circus almost.
Yeah, it's very similar to joining the circus.
But I do think there are so many ways to enter the theater. Like Alex is a performer at this point. He's our head puppeteer. I'm not a performer. I'm not the stage guy, but I did find a need that I was like, oh, you guys need organization and you need help, like on the back end of things. So I'm the queen of behind the scenes.
Yeah,
I think we keep it all together.
Yeah, I think both of us are very lucky. Like, I mean, it's very much a right time, right place of like, the theater is one of those places that is like an unpolished diamond. So you just come in here and you're like, oh, wow, like you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, you could organize this, you could, you know, whatever it may be. And I'm really proud that it's essentially an open door to kind of, like most of our staff comes from our volunteer pool, that it really is just, you can kind of make what you want out of it.
Yeah.
And that's how we got here.
It's really nice.
That's so cool. And I think there's a lot of similarities between that and what we do at the Makerspace. Like, it's really like, you know, just like what you said, like you can really make, you know, whatever you want out of it and like go in whatever direction really interests you. So I see a lot of parallels there. And so I wanted to ask, what are some of the favorite things that both of you do at the theater?
What's your favorite thing, Alex?
Zoom interviews would be number one. No, this is really fun. I mean, there's so much. Like, I mean, nothing beats like a live show performing for like 100 kids or 100 adults, and just the glee that's kind of in the crowd. But also, like the layered history is mind-boggling. Every day we're discovering like, oh wow, like inside this puppet there's like engravings of the puppeteers that made it, or
a name we never knew they called the puppet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is like, it feels like this is like living history kind of in everything in the building. And that, so we moved about 2 years ago, and the guy was like scared, like, oh, are we going to be able to preserve that kind of charm? And I'm very,
we did.
yeah.
We did it.
So that's my favorite thing. What's your favorite thing?
I think my favorite thing, when I say queen of behind the scenes, it kind of means everything. But my favorite part of that is we do changeover week between shows. So we have to change out all these drops. We're repairing set pieces. We're making new set pieces. We're making sure the puppets work. Sometimes the puppets have to wear a Halloween costume. So really diving into all of that and setting the scene to make these shows kind of go off and look beautiful and magical is super fun. I really like that part.
Yeah. And for better and for worse, that you're hard pressed to meet more like ambitious people. So like, no matter how much time we have or how much money we have, we're always like, oh, we could do a little more. We could make like add some more glitter here or whatever it may be.
We're very good at making it work.
Yeah. So it's every moment is just like a constant like crunch to just make it more spectacular.
Yeah. But it's fun. It's a challenge, and it's always spur of the moment, it seems, but it's fun.
Well, it does feel magical even through a computer screen. Like, I couldn't stop smiling, and I got like, a little bit of the butterflies, you know, just like, it felt like I was watching, no, it was a live performance, but it felt like I was there, and I was like clapping even though I was muted. It was so cool.
Good. We like that. Great. That's the best reaction.
Absolutely. And I'm in love with that chicken puppet. She's so cool. When that little egg came out, oh my God, that was a moment.
We always have to add an element of surprise, it feels. Like, it's one thing for a frog to tap dance, that's surprising, but like, I could see a frog tap dancing, that might exist, but like, yeah, you have no idea a chicken's gonna lay an egg in front of you on stage.
Yeah, so do you have any favorite memories at the theater? I know both of you have been there for a while. I'm sure there are tons of memories to choose from. Does anything stick out as really special?
To be honest, and this will sound like a cop-out, is like, there's kind of like...
So much.
Yeah, there's like, every week there's a favorite memory. It's like even like during COVID, just like little kids just coming up and they're doing a puppet show through the glass door because they can't interact, or like
it's just, like little moments that are kind of the best moments.
Yeah.
I would say one of our weirdest, hardest memories, I would say, is like our final show at our original location. It was sad. We were kind of devastated. We didn't know where we were going. We didn't know what was going to happen. But it was a beautiful show, and everyone there was so excited, and there was like balloons and confetti, and we went all out, and it was pretty crazy. So it was a hard day, but we made it magical and good. And now looking back, it's a great memory.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. I didn't know. I wasn't aware that you moved locations.
Yeah, about
2018.
Yeah, about almost 3 years ago. We unfortunately lost our original location. We were on like a month-to-month contract for a little while. And one day we got the phone call that, hey, it's time to up and leave. So we packed up 55 years worth of puppets and props and pieces and fabric and buttons, and Alex cleaned the dust off of things and collected dust in jars, because that's DNA. We need that. We can maybe clone people.
Actually, there's a Daisy right next to you. Want to throw that over?
So we packed up everything, and in about 4 months, we moved every single item we had from a 10,000 square foot theater into a new location.
That's some dust.
That's some dust.
Wow.
But yeah.
History right there.
Yeah.
I admire your resiliency.
Yeah. Well, we figured like we can do puppets pretty well, but like now with the dust, we could probably get into cloning and like really kind of do some like engineering.
If we have questions for Bob, the original Bob Baker, like maybe we can clone him and ask him.
Yeah, that's our next year plan.
Yeah, that's our next year plan.
So I have a few questions about puppetry and puppets. What makes a puppet a marionette?
So that's a great question. So all marionettes are puppets, but not all puppets are marionettes. Marionettes specifically are controlled by strings from above. So you've seen like Muppet-style puppets that are like hand puppets, but marionettes all have strings.
Wow. Do any of you know about the process of making a puppet? Do you still make puppets?
Oh boy, do we.
Yeah. Well, hey, let me hand it. I am going to bid farewell and hand this off to Missy, but it's been so lovely. Thank you guys so much. And enjoy the process of making puppets.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the wonderful
Thank you for
performance.
joining us and for an amazing performance.
So puppets, basically the way that Bob Baker made puppets had evolved over the course of his 80-year career. So in the beginning, when he was making marionettes, they were a bit smaller. His commercial line is quite small. The puppets that we use now are sometimes up to 4 feet tall. They're really big. So over the years, it went from carving wood for each of these pieces to then dressing them with some fabric little sewn outfits to eventually making these giant things that sometimes have weird stuff inside. Some of them are foam, some of them are made of hula hoops, some of them are made of slinkies. Like, we have all kinds of puppets, and essentially the movement of the puppet is what necessitates how it's built. But I brought a visual aid. So a lot of our puppets here, to make sure that they are large and they look like the shapes they're supposed to, but aren't too heavy for the puppeteers, because the puppeteers are holding them up here. They are often a wooden skeleton. This one specifically is outfitted in foam. Here, I'm gonna adjust my focus a little bit so you can see that. There we go. So this is like a foam body over a wooden skeleton, and all of the joints are ropes. Sometimes we use little eye hooks, but you need to be able to have some movement for those puppets. And then there are special things like the knee joints, where we don't want the knee to flip forward. That's not, the accurate movement you want for that puppet. So there are things like hinges that will keep it so it bends one way and not the other. And then, so the bodies, I would say, is the simple part. It's a lot of processes, it's a lot of pieces, but this is your simple part. Because once we get into the heads of the puppets, that's where most of the magic comes from. So that is a lot of the technical work, I would say. So here is a beautiful, lovely clown head. And actually, the back of it is open, so we can see inside of it. So marionette heads are often hollow if they have facial movements, because then we can get in there and we can add springs and things. So when I pull a string, thank you, Daisy. When I pull a string there, you can kind of see that spring move in the back. And what that's doing in the front is allowing his eyeball to move. So
I didn't know that was what the inside of a clown looked like.
Right? They're not scary. They're just springs and things. So yeah, wherever we want them to move, we're going to add a little spring, a little lever, to ensure that once you move it one way, it's going to naturally go back to its resting position. So essentially, a puppet can look like whatever you want it to look like. They don't always have to move, their mouths and their eyes and things, but if you want them to, being hollow is a great trick. You got to get in there, and also sometimes when you're performing, a string will break. So you have to be able to get in somehow and fix that string and repair it and make everything move again. And this one in particular is made out of like it's like a plaster bandage paper mache composite situation. So essentially the master mold would be made. You can make it out of clay, you can carve it out of wood, cast it in plaster, and then add a ton of paper mache to make your hollow form. And it's pretty strong, pretty durable. These things, like Alex was saying earlier, most of our puppets and even these partial puppet pieces are around 50 plus years old. And most of our puppets still get workouts on the daily. So we have to make sure they are nice and strong. And of course, occasionally we do have to touch up paint and things like that. But they are, yeah, quite durable.
That's so
That's
awesome.
absolutely incredible. Like, you know, just seeing the level of thought and detail that goes into creating that magic on stage is really cool.
Yeah.
Is there anything surprising about like that? Like people would be surprised about like the process of making a marionette?
Yeah.
Unusual?
I think people are often surprised at how long it actually takes. You can make a puppet quickly, like a temporary puppet for just a moment, pretty fast in a couple of hours. But for our puppets that we use on stage that are fully costumed, fully painted, have these personas, it takes about 300 hours. And that's the process from sketching out your original design to fabricating each piece. Like this little foot I just had is actually carved wood that is just painted with gesso right now. It needs to get its final colors on there. But each piece is sculpted, carved, cast, you know, whatever you need to do to make that form come alive. So yeah, 300 hours is approximately how long it takes for each puppet. And I think that's like the mind-blowing fact most of the time.
And what's the most challenging part, would you say, about making a puppet?
Ooh. So I think it depends on your skill set, honestly. If you are not a sculptor, maybe that's the hardest part. If you're not an engineer, maybe figuring out those limbs and hinges and bends are a hard part. But honestly, we often work with a team of people. So I would say that's super helpful because you get the people that know how to do these things really well and bring them together for a common goal. And that is super helpful. I'll also say costuming a puppet. They have strings all over their body. You can't take their clothes on and off all the time. So you have to custom fit and sew the clothes onto the puppets. So that one's also a pretty interesting, like, oh, didn't really think of that. Can't just dress it up in like a onesie or whatever baby size clothes. Like it's all custom tailored, custom fit to get the puppets looking exactly how you want.
Yeah. This may break the tradition a little bit, but I don't know if you're ever interested in, have you ever thought about doing like 3D printed puppets? Like
actually, we very recently dabbled in that. We had a custom commission come in for Harry Styles, and it was like a 1 week turnaround time. It was fast. It is hard to fit 300 hours of work, even with a team, into 1 week. And the request actually came in from Spotify, who was doing a Harry Styles event. And they basically were like, hey, this is how we want it to look. Here's a 3D model. And we were like, great, let's do a couple little tweaks to make it more of a puppet. And then we 3D printed it and then casted it in resin. So it was nice. It's not the way that we're going to do everything moving forward, but it was in the Bob Baker tradition of kind of evolving with the times and learning new processes and materials. It was a really good experimental puppet. He looked great. He moved awesome. We don't have a 3D printer in-house just yet. But I think we are definitely looking into that as something to help us go a little bit farther in the future.
Well, the Long Beach Public Library does free 3D prints for people with library cards. So
Little plug for our services.
let us know.
Useful,
Slide
sir.
that in there.
Also on a personal level, I have a 3D printer and I mean, it's the least I could do for that 10-minute wonderful performance. So
I would get a 3D printer for Harry Styles. I mean,
just know if you ever have any 3D printing questions, feel free to reach out to
Oh my gosh.
me or the studio. And we have a good team of people, even laser cutting stuff. We also do laser cutting. So
We have a laser cutter here. We're
Oh.
pretty good at that one, but 3D printing, I have your contact. I will hit you up.
awesome. Perfect.
yeah, that's super fascinating to learn. So we were talking a little bit about how, the Bob Baker Marionette Theater has continued to evolve with the times. Since it is a historic monument, in what ways has the tradition continued, and in what other ways besides, the 3D printing you mentioned, has it evolved and changed?
For sure. So we have been a company since 1963, and kind of even before that, like I was saying, how Bob used to go on the road and things. So we try to keep most of what we do completely true to his vision. So it is totally possible that people could come see a show, let's pretend we're open, not COVID right now. So people could come to see a show right now, and it would be the same show that perhaps their grandparents saw back in the 50s or 60s when they were younger. So we have a long-standing tradition of kind of keeping things alive as much as we can. As far as kind of rolling and evolving, there are some things that maybe were publicly acceptable back in the 50s that maybe we turn a different eye to these days. So we're forever trying to evolve and make sure what we're doing is okay for this century. So we're pretty good at that. There's not a lot of stuff that made us question what we were doing. There have been a number or two where we're like, maybe that one's not great for 2021. And then, as far as our puppets and things, we are, like I said, trying to keep with that tradition of learning new technologies, getting things made maybe faster, more accurate, but also there are times when we're like, oh, this would have been so much better if we just carved it out of a piece of wood, so we will do that. So there's a lot of adapting, I would say, to new technologies while still honoring everything from our past, because we know these tried and true techniques, we know these tried and true routines, so we're always going to honor those and keep those alive while subtly, slowly adding in maybe some new things here and there.
Very cool.
Awesome.
So on the subject of just the past and the history of the theater, can you tell us a little bit about the Bob Baker Marionette Archive?
Oh, absolutely. Our archive is awesome. So we moved Bob's library from the original theater to the theater that we're in now. And that library is it contains a lot of items for being in a very small space. So we have about 6,000 vinyl records that inspired all the soundtracks to our shows. There are also all of the original reel-to-reel tapes where Bob would record things, splice them, record them onto his own records, or reel-to-reels rather. All of his old cassettes that were show soundtracks when cassettes were popular. And that's half of our archive is music. The other half of the archive is Bob's book collection. So our own book library is pretty big. Again, thousands of books, and it's anything from, he has basically every little golden book that was ever written, which is kind of my favorite little section because those are nostalgia. But he also has so many books that are about building puppets, maintaining puppets, about costuming in Hollywood, in the film industry. All of these bits and pieces that inspired the creation of all of these puppets, all of the backgrounds you see. And we also have our print library, which beyond just books, it's truly every sketch, every painting, every swatch of fabric from a puppet costume. He saved really every single little bit of everything he ever touched, everything he did. So we have boxes on boxes on boxes on flat files and cabinets, shelves everywhere that are just filled with basically everything that inspired the theater that we have today. It is very expansive. We need a little bit more space to get it all viewable to the public, but that is our ultimate goal. We want to get it organized enough where folks can come in and use it as a research library, hear these old vinyl records that are like novelty albums from the 1940s that everyone has forgotten about, but we happen to have. And to see all these books that are such a great puppet making resource, and these books are from the 40s, 50s, 60s, they're a little bit harder to find these days, and we have pristine editions of them. So eventually we're going to get to that point of unpacked and organized where folks can come in and actually use these things.
That sounds like such a special space. And I know just for myself, like I would love to come and visit the archive when it is open to the public, because that just sounds fascinating.
Even if you would like to come down and see it ahead of time, we're happy to have you. Just drop me in.
I would even love like a art book of just like photographs of the archive and puppets and stuff.
I would say right now it would be photographs of piles of boxes, but we're getting there.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah, so shifting gears a little bit, what do you believe makes puppetry such a special medium and such a special medium to tell stories?
I would say puppetry is almost like a cartoon come to life. Puppets can do things that actors cannot because actors have to deal with gravity and body movements and muscles and things. Puppets can truly be anything. We have, like I was saying earlier, we have puppets that are made out of slinkies. We have puppets that literally are rigged to trapeze situations so they can do aerial tricks, but they're being held by a puppeteer. Puppets can honestly be any and everything, and they're just whimsical, but they're also tangible. Like, they're right in front of you. You can see it happening. You can see the puppeteer. You can see the strings, but you get so lost and immersed in the world that you kind of forget about that stuff. And it is just these little characters come to life performing for you, and it's great. How I was saying earlier, there are often we like to have gags, we like to have special teaser effect things, or we like to trick you, you didn't know that was coming. So all of those things, even as an adult, I can watch those, and if it's something I haven't seen before, it'll blow my mind. I'm in my mid-30s, and a puppet can make me completely question everything that I know, and I just think it's great. It's fun. It's like practical magic. It's right there, but it reads as magic.
Definitely. I forgot during the performance that there was someone pulling the strings, and it just made me smile so much, like I said earlier.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
How has the theater adapted to the COVID limitations?
So it's been an interesting year, to say the least. We immediately shifted gears. We were in this location for about 3 months before the pandemic hit. So we had just had our grand opening. We were really getting everything together. It was so fun. I had a calendar full of field trips and things booked. And then we got the notice in March of last year that was like, hey, we're just going to shut down for 2 weeks. Everybody take 2 weeks off. And we were like, okay, cool, that's weird, whatever. And then it just kept going and kept going and kept going. And honestly, we're a small theater, we're a nonprofit organization, and we were like, what are we gonna do? We just moved into a new house, this is our home, we just got here, what do we do? So we pivoted almost immediately to online stuff. We do Zoom performances pretty often. We do private bookings for birthday parties and things. We've done graduations and retirements, or just a fun Saturday. People book shows because they still want to be entertained. We're live on the camera, just like we are right now. So people can get that interaction, but they can also see the live performance. And we also did quite a bit of educational content at the last spring, where if you go on our website, you can find Miss Missy, that's me. You can find me teaching you how to make puppets and all this stuff. And we did it like a kid's show. So I have a sidekick who is a little puppet who kind of helps me out, and he's learning to make puppets on his own. But I'm there to kind of guide and hold your hand through the process. So we were doing a lot of things like that where we're like, okay, it's beyond entertainment at this point. People want to be engaged, they want to interact. There are things that, we've been dreaming for years of teaching classes here at the theater. We just don't have the space at the moment, or we don't have all of the content. So it was a really great time to kind of take a break, take a breather, refocus, and start to do some of the educational content we had been dreaming about. While still offering these shows for people through Zoom. We also still currently do public Zooms every month. So you can go to our website, buy a $10 ticket, log in from wearing your jammies at your house, and watch a puppet show on a Saturday morning. So we're still trying to be as active as we can. And now that we're hopefully at the tail end of this pandemic, we are starting to plan outdoor shows before we're ready to welcome people back into our house. So we're just trying to go along with all of the, curveballs that everything is throwing us, but adapting in all the best ways that we can while still getting out there, still serving the community, still entertaining folks and bringing a little bit of happiness during a really uncertain time. We're doing, everything we can possibly think of with our small staff of 5 people and a few puppeteers to bring smiles.
That's awesome, and I feel like it made your group more resilient. And I mean, the fact that you got to do the education thing is awesome, because you and Alex came looking for a place like the Bob Baker Marionette Theater. And I don't know, yeah, puppets aren't as popular, I think, or like in this time era. But maybe some people are like super, they want to get into like to be a crafter, and like by educating people, you're just spreading that type of craft and letting people know about it.
Yeah, and that, I mean, honestly, that was a big appeal of the theater for me because I went to art school and I was like, well, I know how to paint and I know how to sculpt and I know how to build and I know how to do all these weird things. Do I have to choose one of those for a career? And then it turned into like, oh, puppets are actually literally all of those things rolled into one. So that's, yeah, it's one of those things where there's so many ways to enter this industry that you don't really see often. But it brings together so many things. And honestly, working with kids, it is very much a STEAM situation where it is that science, technology. It's everything kind of rolled into one, depending on how you want to do it.
Yeah. And on the Zoom thing, my first introduction to the Bob Baker Marionette Theater was, I mentioned to you on the phone call, was I was watching Office Hours with Tim Heidecker, like his morning show. Like before work, I would just like start watching it while I'm at my computer. And then I think on Halloween, y'all did a really good performance. And I was just like super fascinated. But all my coworkers already knew about the Bob Baker Marionette Theater.
Yeah, it's fun. Our audience is very vast because like our main thing, we think of ourselves as like a children's performance theater. It's a kid's first introduction to puppets or to live theater or to, you know, anything like this, anything with a stage. But then we do have like, we're friends with Tim Heidecker, you know, we're friends with Maria Bamford. We just end up in all these places that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see puppets. But like at this point, there is a pretty good adult following as well. So it's really fun to kind of be spread all over the map with all of the weird stuff that we get into.
Yeah. Do you have time for a few more questions?
Yeah.
Okay. So, when did the Bob Baker Marionette Theater start doing music videos for artists?
So I would say around the time that Alex started is when music videos started to get a little bit more popular because Alex started at the theater right at the tail end of Bob's life here at the theater. And it was very much like, what can we do to preserve this place? We need to make money, you know, the puppets maybe, or the standard puppet shows maybe aren't bringing in as much as we'd like. We need some extra income. And we would get inquiries from bands, sometimes local bands, sometimes big name bands, who would just be like, hey, like I came here just to see a show, but you're awesome and we want to work with you. So we ended up working with like Mini Mansions and with Tegan and Sarah, and Lil Nas X did an event here. Like, so over the years, it's just kind of rolled into more and more and more music videos and celebrity contacts, which is super crazy to think about. And we also will often send off our puppets to other locations and let them perform, you know, in a studio or whatever it is. We were just recently, some of our puppets were in a Pink music video that came out 2 days ago. So honestly, we never go looking for it. They come looking for us, which is pretty cool.
That's really cool. Yeah, I saw the Justin Bieber one as research for this interview. And that was, I believe, set at the theater and
the very stage right here.
Very stage. And that was super cool and fascinating.
I saw the Soko the Cat one. And I really liked that one a lot. Have you seen any of the videos get shot?
Oh yeah, I'm here for basically all of them. So when videos are shot in the house, we still have our crew that's kind of running around behind the scenes. If you ever see a spotlight happen in a video, that's me up on the spotlight, just pointing it at whoever these people are. If you see the lights change on stage, that's often Alex, or if the drops are moving, that's either one of us or maybe one of our puppeteers. So we always have a hand in all of these things. Maybe we're not credited as those things, but we are collectively the Bob Baker Marionette Theater. It's not about us so much as it is about the place in the theater and the legacy, just being out there and still remaining relevant.
Yeah. Well, now when I watch those videos, I'll look out for Missy. I'm like, that's them.
Yeah, if you see rainbow hair whoosh by, that's me.
Awesome.
All right, so just a couple questions left. So we like to put together a book list for all of our guests on the show. Do you have any books that you would recommend to our patrons? Books that have maybe inspired you or that relate to what you do here?
Yeah, so I actually pulled a couple from our library.
Oh, awesome. I can't wait to see.
So I pulled two that we really like. So this first one is Marionettes, How to Make and Work Them by Helen Fling. This book, I believe, is from 1976, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, 1973, excuse me. But this book is awesome. This is kind of your guide to making puppets at home out of things that are pretty attainable, and it will show you every step of the way, like how to mold things or how you want to paint things and what materials you need. This one is great because you can go simple or you can go extreme, and this book kind of has every step of the way. It's like your guidance book. This is like your fairy godmother. And then
So cool.
yeah, this one, honestly, it showed up on my desk one day. Don't really know who pulled it. Don't know where it lives in the library. It doesn't, most of our books even have like a little Ex Libris sticker for Bob Baker, so you know it's from his library. This one doesn't have one, but it also looks like some pages have been torn out at the beginning. So this one was just like bestowed upon me by the spirits of the theater, and I really like it.
Yeah, it was one of the puppets.
Yeah, one of the puppets was just like, girl, you need this. Like, just hold on. And then this is another book that I'd say this one is like the advanced version of that one. This one is called Puppet Circus by Peter Fraser. And this one has so many weird stringing techniques that, like, as a person, you can look and be like, oh, I want to move an arm. I have to put a string on that arm to pull that arm. This has stringing techniques that are like the trapeze that I was talking about earlier, where like you can literally make a puppet do a flip around on his midsection with his hands and then land by hanging on with his feet. There are like handstand puppets. This one can also show you like very specific levers of how to move the mouth and pieces inside the head. This one, yeah, I'd say this is your advanced copy of this beginner book. But these two together are kind of like the holy grail. These will teach you so much about puppets and how to make and work them.
Cool.
I love all the diagrams.
Yeah, they are so incredibly useful.
Well, if they're still like in print or able to be found, I think our goal through like collecting book recommendations is like to eventually try to get them in our book catalog at the Long Beach Public Library. So
Yeah,
we'll keep our eye out for those books.
Yeah, I can email you these names again if you'd like them.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you. So one question we like to ask all our guests is, what is your most memorable library experience? This can be at any library at any point in your life.
So I would say most memorable is probably when I was a child, because once you get into high school and college and stuff, library is very dedicated to research and specific things, and when you're a kid you absolutely have freedom to just go around and choose whatever looks great. And I remember my library, I grew up in Euclid, Ohio. The library has this amazing children's section where I would just get literally lost from my mom. Like, we'd go to the library together and I'd be like, nope, this is the aisle that I want, and she would be over there, and I wouldn't find her for a while because this was like in the 80s, early 90s, no cell phones, no nothing. You just get lost in the library. And I remember just sitting on the floor, crisscross applesauce, kind of like I am right now, and just perusing through all of these books until I found exactly the one that spoke to me. Because I was an advanced reader child, I was one of those special kids. And there were just so many options, and there were so many things that caught my attention, and just being able to sit in the library and browse through all the books before I decided, the 10 or whatever that I wanted to take home that week, was just the most fun. Just getting to choose my own adventures for every time I went to the library to check things out. And I still, at this point in my life, again, I'm in my mid-30s, and I search eBay for some of those old books that I have such vivid memories of. And I realized also as a child, maybe I wasn't as advanced reader as I thought, because some of the words I remembered as completely different words. But there are still things that I'm searching for on eBay to this day that I last read when I was like 8, 9 years old.
Oh, that's a great story. And like, I agree that like one of the things that makes libraries, you know, such a magical place sometimes for kids is just like having that sense of agency to go through the books and find what speaks to you. Is definitely definitely can be magical, and I love hearing that story.
Choose your own adventure in the purest sense of the phrase.
All right, so we're winding down on the interview. Just wanted to ask, how can people find out more about what the Bob Baker Marionette Theater does and stay caught up with everything you're doing?
Yeah, so I'd say your two best ways to keep in touch with us are bobbakermarionettetheater.com. We know it's a very long website title, but bobbakermarionettetheater.com. We have a calendar of events. We have our Learn section where you can find those Miss Missy videos that teach you how to make puppets and things from stuff you find around the house. We have all of our big announcements end up on the front page of our website. So you'll see when we are able to open again, where you can find us for outdoor shows throughout the summer. And we're also super active on Instagram, just at Bob Baker Marionettes. We post all the time. You can kind of see what we're up to behind the scenes. You can see that really is kind of the best place to see the first announcement, because we can make it really flashy of like, yes, we're doing a summer show at this location in June. And you can come check us out that way. And then once we reopen, we have a great volunteer program. So if you're like, wow, that stuff is cool, and I do like puppets, that's my thing now, you can come join us, and hey, maybe you'll turn into the next Missy or Alex. There is much to be done, and most of it is very fun.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the interview and for getting the performance happening in the beginning. So thank you, Missy. Thank you, Alex. And thank you to the Bob Baker Marionette Theater. And that concludes our interview. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was so much fun.